Exploring the U.S. Army's approach to counterinsurgency in Iraq. The U.S. Army's approach to counterinsurgency in Iraq was a controversial issue during the early 2000s. The war in Iraq, which started in 2003 and lasted for more than a decade, was a complex conflict that involved multiple insurgent groups and different political and religious factions. The U.S. Army had to adapt its strategy to the changing dynamics of the conflict, and its approach to counterinsurgency evolved over time. At the heart of the U.S. Army's approach to counterinsurgency was the belief that winning the hearts and minds of the local population was crucial to defeating the insurgency. Counterinsurgency is not just a military operation, but a political and social one as well. The U.S. Army understood that it was not enough to kill or capture insurgents. It had to gain the support of the local population and isolate the insurgents from their support base. The U.S. Army's approach to counterinsurgency in Iraq was based on a number of principles. These principles were outlined in the U.S. Army Field Manual 3-24, which was published in 2006. The manual was based on the experiences of U.S. Army officers who had served in Iraq and Afghanistan. The manual emphasized the importance of the following principles. Firstly, the U.S. Army recognized that civilians were the center of gravity in counterinsurgency operations. The local population was the key to success or failure, and the U.S. Army had to gain their trust and support. The U.S. Army used a variety of tactics to win over the hearts and minds of the local population. These included providing security, providing basic services such as healthcare and education, and working with local leaders to address their concerns. Secondly, the U.S. Army recognized that it had to isolate the insurgency from its support base. Insurgents relied on the support of the local population for shelter, food, and intelligence. The U.S. Army had to disrupt this support system to weaken the insurgents. This was done by implementing strict security measures, conducting targeted raids, and using intelligence to identify and capture insurgents. Thirdly, the U.S. Army recognized that it had to train and equip the local security forces to take over the security responsibilities. The U.S. Army could not stay in Iraq forever, and it had to prepare the local security forces to take over the responsibility of maintaining security. This involved training the local police and military forces, providing them with equipment and resources, and helping them to establish the rule of law. Fourthly, the U.S. Army recognized that it had to work with the local government to address the underlying political and social issues that were fueling the insurgency. The U.S. Army understood that the insurgency was not just a military problem, but a political and social one as well. The U.S. Army worked closely with the local government to address issues such as corruption, economic development, and sectarian tensions. The U.S. Army's approach to counterinsurgency in Iraq was not without its challenges. The insurgency was a complex and adaptive adversary, and it was not always clear who the enemy was. The U.S. Army faced criticism for its heavy-handed tactics, such as the use of torture, and for its failure to win the hearts and minds of the local population. The U.S. Army also faced challenges in working with the local government, which was often weak and corrupt. Despite these challenges, the U.S. Army's approach to counterinsurgency in Iraq was largely successful. The U.S. Army was able to weaken the insurgency and restore order to the country. The U.S. Army's approach to counterinsurgency was also influential in shaping the U.S. military strategy in other conflicts, such as Afghanistan. In conclusion, the U.S. Army's approach to counterinsurgency in Iraq was based on the belief that winning the hearts and minds of the local population was crucial to defeating the insurgency. The U.S. Army's approach was based on a number of principles, such as the need to gain the support of the local population, isolate the insurgency from its support base, and train and equip the local security forces. The U.S. Army's approach was not without its challenges, but it was largely successful in weakening the insurgency and restoring order to the country. The U.S. Army's approach to counterinsurgency in Iraq was influential in shaping the U.S. military strategy in other conflicts as well.